So let's talk today about basic stance width. So how wide should you stand to get the best results for your golf? So there's lots of different basic kind of setup videos out there, and stance width has been something for me generally taught always in years gone past as something to do with basic stability, so just standing up and strike control. Now where there's still an element of that, maybe the bigger factor with stance width is what it can do to your whole swing and how it might affect and also help you if you can get your stance width right for you. So what you'll learn in most things in golf is that there'll be always these generalized basic ideas which kind of can help and hurt people, but they sell well. People like watching them. Or you can delve a bit deeper and look at what actually is going on and try and make yourself better. So I'm going to use my Swing Catalyst pressure plate and force plate here to try and show you how stance width affects my swing and how I could use it or not to try and help me hit better shots. I've got a 7-iron. So I'm just going to hit a shot with my 7-iron to kick me off here to get a feel of what I'm trying to hit today. This is my normal stance width, so I've basically got my feet, to me, feel like they're about my waist apart, so I feel stable enough to swing. I feel stable enough to go at it if I need to, and I don't feel like I'm going to lose balance and I can strike the ball from there. So we're talking about a width of stance which is around the same width as my hips. So let's just capture a swing now, and I'm going to stand with my feet. So my normal stance, where I want to stance, if we measure it on the plate here, is around 16 inches wide. Okay, I'm going to move to 20. So I'm gone to 20 inches wide, which feels very wide to me, and I'm going to try and just hit a normal straight shot from here and capture this data. I feel like I can hit the ball there. I feel very solid. The strike was decent. I feel like I could put some speed in there, but I definitely feel like I've got to move my body slightly differently to coordinate everything. Now I'm going to capture one, try and hit a very similar shot, and I'm going to stand my normal whip stance, which you can see here in the top right, 16.5 inches wide. Now what the force plate is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to look inside more, how my feet are pushing and reacting and the forces are being chucked back at me from this ground, which you won't always see so much in 2D camera. So if we look at the wider stance here to start us off, now I've actually shuffled down to 18.7 because obviously I'm shuffling about as I'm trying to get ready. Now I want you just to look at the three graphs here on the right. And what you're going to notice is that this one, so the horizontal force, so think of this as pushing left and right. So basically think of that one as going this way or this way, so the force is across the ground this way. It basically peaks at 20%. So quite a big spike. It's actually my biggest power source out of the three peaks that you can see. If you look at the grey or the blacked out bar on these three peaks, think of those as tour average forces applied. So you can see the only one that gets into the tour average. This is a 7-iron, they're a driver, so they would be lower, but the horizontal's gone way up. So you put me wider stanced, I'm having to push to hit that ball much more force, much more energy horizontally to make my strike. Now if we compare that to my more regular width of stance, and what you see now is a very different, I got a bit of a double peak, which is me, but what happens now is we see a max of 13% in my horizontals. Because I'm not so wide, I don't need to shove myself this way, so I can do other things. And what you'll notice I do a lot more of, which is my key power source for me, which is the vertical, so me trying to get up out of it, is look how much the blue bar down here peaks, the vertical peaks at 185%. Bit late, but it's peaking. It's not quite in the right place, but that's something I'm trying to work on. Where again, if you compare that to my wide stance, so the swing here on the right, what you're going to see is we've got 149%. So a very different use of the ground, a very different way. It's going to affect how much I turn, it's going to affect my strike, it will affect my club path, it'll even affect my power source, so how much power I can put into a shot subject to what my power source is. Now, what does this mean for the average golfer out there playing? Let's pretend I'm now 75-year-old Mark, and turning around this left hip and pushing out of this left knee now isn't my friend. These joints are not happy with the amount of shots I've hit. I might choose to go a bit wider and think about using horizontal forces to create my energy. This is why you might see some of the older senior golfers doing some of these shifts. Some of them are because they physically can't move in a different way. Some of them are through bad training and they could change it. But again, the point is that you've got to find your power source and your width of stance that works for you. And again, think about how this works. So when it comes to a driver, I naturally have a slightly wider stance. So you can see now I've gone up to 18. So 2 inches kind of thing, 2 to 3 inches at the most. Watch what happens to my power sources here, or where I feel like I'm getting them. So again, look at my main power source. It's the bottom bar, it's the vertical. It's me trying to jump up and get out of that left side is where I'm getting most of my energy. So me limiting how much I can get out of the left side by going super, super wide. So what are we now, 21 inches wide. Not a very good strike, but it would hit most fairways. If we look at what that's done to my power, for me, with my driver, making me have to be too horizontal and taking away my vertical, just saps power out of my movement, and it changes direction, because when I get more horizontal, I tend to hit more into out, and I then start to see more curvature in my shots, where when I'm getting up through my left leg, through a more reasonable stance, which is allowing that to happen, along with other things, it gets my path much more neutral and I can control shape both ways a bit more. So your basic rule of thumb, and some things that you can play when you go to the range or when you go and practice next, is your iron will tend to have a narrower stance than your driver, but a tiny amount, 1 inch or 2. Now, if you're someone who feels that you haven't got the mobility to twist and turn like you think you should, so you just literally don't feel you can physically get loads of rotations in, getting slightly wider stances, turning that left foot out and allowing for some horizontal shifts, so really feel like you're moving this way and reducing how much you turn. See what it does to your ball flight, see what it does to your speed, see what it does to your strikes. If that helps you, then that wider stance turned out might be an option for you. If you're someone of an age or an ability physically that feels that you should be turning a lot more, check that your stance isn't too wide. Try a few shots with a narrower stance. Get it around hip width and feel that you're pushing more with your pressure in the ground, more towards the launch monitor and then towards the launch monitor. So right foot pushes forward, which pushes the hip back on the backswing. Downswing, feel like the left foot now pushes towards the launch monitor, which will push that hip back on the downswing. To assist with some rotations, the way you turn and how you turn is going to be influenced by these other forces. If you need to use loads of this, you're going to probably reduce a bit of this, and it might compromise a bit of this. It's playing. Feel a few narrow ones, feel a few wider ones, see what your power source is. And if you're not sure, go and have a lesson. If you can get on a lesson with anyone with a plate, it would be massively advantaged for you to really dig down and see what stance might help you hit some better shots. Unfortunately, as much as the internet wants to tell you you should stand this way, you all have to be quite unique, because you're all very different in your makeups, in where you find your power sources, and the amount of movements you can do. Let me know if this makes sense. Let me know if you want to see more from the 3D force plate, because there's so much that you can learn. Because if you think about it, the only thing you're connected to, 2 things, you're connected to the club and then you're connected to the ground. So if you want to start creating energies, you want to start putting more forces into the ball and be more efficient, hurt your body less, your ground's your biggest source of help, where lots of people, unfortunately, it hinders them.